Not bad. There were so many great games that came out in 2018, and my game of the year was, of course, Far Cry 5. Let me explain. One of the things I like to rate games on is how much sustenance you're getting out of it. Because you could have a top-level game like Uncharted 4, but if it only takes you 10 hours to beat it, and your motivation for replaying it is kind of lacking, then you haven't got a very substantial game, even though it's a good game. But something that gives a game longevity is how compelling it is to play through. As much as it pains me to say it, great games like God of War, I just didn't feel compelled to finish them. That's not to say it's a bad game, far from it. It's just not a game that compels me to keep playing. I'll play about 6 hours and then I've seen everything I need to see from the game. Wow, top class game, really enjoyed it, but I don't feel compelled to finish it. It's a difficult feeling to describe, but one that a lot of reviewers will actually go through without actually bringing it into the light like I'm doing now. So why Far Cry 5? You've got Spider-Man, you've got God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2. Why Far Cry 5? Well, Far Cry 5 gave me something to really root for, a story I wanted to delve into, a role I wanted to play, and characters I wanted to either save or kill with every fiber of my being. I wanted to play this game to completion. And that's why, even though I forget to give them out most of the time, I have my Prey medal system. Because it's all very well to give a game a good shark card, but if there's no real substance there, then what you have is a game that won't take you long to beat, and once you're done with it, you're done with it. And you'll be thinking, wow, that was a really good game that I played for 10 hours, which is why we have the Prey medal system, even though, again, I keep forgetting to use it. And I got a lot of substance out of Far Cry 5, so I was absolutely thrilled when they announced that there was going to be a direct sequel to Far Cry 5 in Far Cry New Dawn. Now, the first time I saw actual footage of New Dawn, I thought, uh-oh, this is going to be a little bit too much like Rage 2, but I have a feeling that they're going to end up being two entirely different beasts. New Dawn doesn't exactly overwhelm the audience with new features, and it doesn't go out of its way to stand out in the Far Cry franchise, at least not for me personally. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have its own charm, its own flair. So to start everything off, if you haven't played Far Cry 5, I recommend you stop this review because I'm about to spoil the ending. At the end of Far Cry 5, nukes go off and the whole of Hope County is absolutely decimated. And here we are several years later, rising from the ashes, to a new level of oppression, violence, and control in the form of the Twins. Now, the Twins themselves are interesting antagonists, but they're certainly not going to stand toe-to-toe with the likes of Vaz or Min. What makes a character truly stand out in the Far Cry franchise is how much they make you think. And for me, this second appearance of Joseph Seed has, in my opinion, put him up with the likes of Vaz and Min as great all-time Far Cry characters. Which of course brings us to the writing. The story in this game is arguably better, or at least better told, than the story of Far Cry 5. In Far Cry 5 you had it broken up into segments where you had to deal with Jacob's Seed, Faith's Seed, and John's Seed before you could actually take on Joseph, or as he's known by all his followers, the Father. So with so many more characters, you would have thought that was a more enriched and deep story, but I actually think this game tells a more compelling story, particularly regarding the Seed family. So what are you doing there? Well, you're there to help build prosperity, but your train gets hijacked by the Twins and everybody killed or captured. And it's the standard Far Cry fare, to be honest. There's civilization to be rebuilt and people to be rescued and lots of bad guys to shoot. But despite that familiar feeling, this is actually a great narrative for a Far Cry game, one of the better ones in my opinion. Moving on to gameplay, well, this is pretty much standard fare as far as Far Cry is concerned. You have your guns, you have your melee attacks, and you have all your different perks that allow you to kill people from above or break their necks from behind. Great additions to stealth, great additions to assassination. You can last longer, you can give yourself adrenaline boost. It's the established Far Cry formula. However, this game takes a little bit more away from Far Cry 5 than any other previous Far Cry game. Which is fair enough, because it is a sequel, but at the same time, it actually literally takes some things away from Far Cry 5 that make me scratch my head. Things such as the ability to have more than one gun for hire. On higher difficulties, this game can be quite punishing, and when you only have one gun for hire who goes down all the time very, very quickly, it can be a problem. And one of the changes to the gun for hire system is instead of waiting out their return and just using a different gun for hire, you actually have to sort of recraft that gun for hire with a bunch of different materials found throughout the world. It's never punishing to try and find these materials, but if your characters keep dying, you will find yourself low on these, and you will find yourself running out of guns for hire and starting to hunt around the lands for the pieces you need to craft, seemingly, your new gun for hire. Another thing that's missing from the gun for hire system is that you can't just seem to find random NPCs that have guns that you like and make them your gun for hire. I ran with the same sniper chick in Far Cry 5 for absolutely hours. No such luck in this one. Although there are new actual story characters that you can have as gun for hire. Memorable ones too. The psychotic killer grandma Nana and the amazing Horatio the giant boar are two standout guns for hire. All of the good going on in Prosperity is mostly down to the Rye family, Kim and Nick from the previous game, and their daughter Carmina. There are quite a few callouts to Far Cry 5. A much older Herc, much older Sharky, much older Grace, and much older Pastor Jerome. So in terms of new characters and likewise new guns for hire, there isn't a lot new here. But the takes on the characters are still interesting enough, even though I personally didn't really use many of the characters from the previous game because I thought, well, I already had them, so I tended to stick with new characters, again, like Nana and Horatio. Let's talk about the graphics. Whereas Far Cry 5 was colorful but mostly grounded in reality, Far Cry New Dawn goes for the full enchilada. Color is absolutely everywhere, and the details in how people have made modern weapons from old parts, such as sniper scopes being comprised mostly of piping, is actually really cool to see. It's not original, but it's still really cool to see in the Far Cry universe. Sound design is still top-notch, guns sound like guns, but even more so now that they've had to be manufactured in such a way. For example, suppressed sniper rifles that use old blue tarps as suppressors sound definitely different to your standard high-tech sniper. Next up, we have to take a look at the controversy surrounding this game, and that is the new RPG elements. Now enemy characters have ratings from standard to blue, purple, and then finally to gold. Gold enemy soldiers and animals are vicious, and you will need good gear to take them out. So instead of like Far Cry's of old finding towers to open up more of the land, much like Far Cry 5, you're just collecting resources to build from the ground up. In this case, ethanol, which you use to build up prosperity and add new improvements such as better weapons, better ammunition for your weapons, and expeditions. But the RPG elements themselves feel a little bit flat. I can't say that I really enjoyed seeing all the numbers flying off people's heads. On higher level difficulty, you'll experience more purple and gold enemies, and let me tell you, if you don't have the right gear, don't even bother. The new RPG elements state that you will not kill them before they kill you. Strongholds have been updated to follow through with this RPG focus. You can opt to beat them several times, and each time they get tougher and tougher, but nothing quite prepares you for the jump in difficulty of when you've already redone a stronghold once, and the difficulty has gone from being slightly more challenging the second time to being, I think we've skipped a few levels the third time. And one of the other positives of this game is how you get gear. It's no longer a money-making thing. No, you're looking for specific parts throughout the world. Parts that you may need to acquire from expeditions if you really want to go after the high-tech gear. There's an array of different weapons, and they all have a class ranging from, again, blue, purple, gold. And by the time you reach gold, if you go back and fight normal enemies, you'll one-hit them with any bullet of any kind, which seems odd in a Far Cry game, and it didn't really land for me. Another misstep regarding the RPG system for me personally was that you could spend all the ethanol in the world to upgrade your guns for hire to gold tier, elite level guns for hire, and they would still struggle to take out some of the higher level enemies. And I thought that seemed odd considering the higher level enemies were meant to be the same tier as them. All the enemies dropped for me with my gold tier guns, no problem. But my guns for hire, even at max level, did seem to struggle against them. In fact, regarding Nana, her upgrade from the second tier to the third tier made no difference to my game whatsoever. I don't know if that was intended by the developers or not, but it is something that I noticed and thought, well, what was the point in me spending all that ethanol then? I could have just left her on the previous tier. Crank the difficulty up in this game, and if you're not properly equipped, blue tier and purple tier enemies will decimate you, so you need to have a plan, especially when attacking strongholds. And this is when Far Cry just sings for me, and the reason that I was such a big fan of previous Far Cries is because I love liberating outposts and trying to do it as stealthily as possible. And the game encourages you to do this by giving you a lot more ethanol if you can do it without raising the alarms or being detected. And it's well worth trying. But there's more than strongholds in this world. Another thing you'll find a lot are treasure maps, which will lead you to stashes of sorts, which are well worth finding because they are full of goodies. If you go into this game and you loot virtually everything you see, when it comes time to start crafting better guns, you will find that you are ready to go, except perhaps the gold guns because you need special circuit boards, which at this point I've only been able to get from Expeditions. Which brings us to Expeditions. One of the standout new additions to the regular flow of gameplay is a French helicopter pilot who likes to take us to locations that I really couldn't tell you where they are, because you can end up in the desert or on the coast about to infiltrate a giant freighter for its goodies where there's sharks in the water. Where the hell did they come from? So obviously we're now in the ocean, so I don't know. But the expeditions themselves are actually really fun and really intense, because not only do you have to creep around and try and locate by hand the package that you're looking for, which in itself can be a bit time consuming, especially if you're trying to go around stealthily and not alerting everybody to your presence, but then the package is GPS marked, and as soon as you pick it up, whoo-hoo, the world of enemies comes after you. Cars, helicopters, RPGs, mortars, everything is coming after you, and your lovely French helicopter pilot is going to take about 2 minutes to arrive to extract you. So start running around in circles and try not to die. There are other shortcomings in the game. For instance, some things don't land. The third act of the story starts as if it's a different game completely. It just takes everything that was flowing from the first 2 acts and starts off in a very unusual scenario, which I won't spoil here, but you'll definitely know which one I'm talking about when you get there. And I would have liked to have spent more time with Joseph Seed and all of his crazy bliss-induced hallucinations and magic. And after advancing a little way through the game, you do actually gain the ability to equip godlike powers, which will add a strange double jump to your game, or the ability to stealth more easily and more swiftly, or even the ability to Hulk out and just punch your way through absolutely everything that comes at you. I'm serious, you punch guys and they fly back like something out of a superhero film. It's an entertaining addition to the game, but if you have all your god powers activated by the end of the third act, you'll find that things that should have been really difficult end up being really easy. Which brings us to the final point of contention for the game, the length. It is short. Now, on a normal difficulty playthrough, even stopping to do lots of side quests, unlock all the characters, and upgrade all my weapons, it took me just under 20 hours. Now, on a higher difficulty, you can add another 5 or 6 hours to this runtime, but you're still looking at a game that will take less than 30 hours to absolutely 100%. And maybe that'll be a turnoff for some people, and maybe it won't be. But when it comes to Far Cry, you expect games that you can lose 100 plus hours into just trying to find absolutely everything, and it just won't take that long this time around. But that is countered by the fact that this is actually a cheaper Far Cry game than normal, £10 cheaper, or 25% cheaper, and I think that that somehow balances out the game time. Which brings us to the final verdict. Far Cry New Dawn brings a few new things to the fold, but mostly it just takes away existing ones, and some of them, well, I wish they hadn't. The story is better than, say, Far Cry 5, but the gameplay is too familiar and doesn't really innovate enough for me. It can be a bit grindy from time to time, and the third act grinds to a halt right from the beginning, but overall, I had a really good time with this one. Now, I've ummed and awed over what to score the game, and since its predecessor was an Ascended, and they are quite similar, I do feel pressure to say that it is this good. But because it's so familiar, and because it's so short, I can't go with Ascended. I don't really feel like going back and finding the rest of the strongholds to 3-star them, or the rest of the stashes. I'm done. And for me, that's a sign that I can't really give it a legendary either. However, I will go with the ultra rare. I do think this is a better than good game. It's a great game. And because I'm actually remembering to give out the Prey medals today, I'm going to give it the Silver Sea Lion. This is the badge of honor of a game that knows that it's a good sized portion, around 30 to 40 hours on highest difficulties, lots of fun, lots of compelling reasons to play it through, but perhaps it doesn't quite stray into the territory of game that you'll keep coming back to and replaying over and over again. So that's my review of Far Cry New Dawn. What have you guys thought? Did you get the game? Are you enjoying it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's too similar? Do you think it's too different? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching this video, and if you liked it, tear that like button limb from limb, and if you want to be among the first to be notified of new content on the channel, go ahead and slam that subscribe button and ring the bell, and I will see you guys next time.